In some worlds, pigs run rampant, taking hostages, working registers, blowing up buildings, or making you dinner. Sweet Fuse is a game about pigs and their struggle. Kind of. Okay, not really. A little bit. I recently played through Sweet Fuse at your side on my channel. Feel free to see the link. Yeah. Initially released in Japan in 2012 as Bomb Decision after being developed by Concept and Idea Factory. Aksys, a publisher famous for their niche localization work in the West, then released the game in 2013 internationally for the PlayStation Portable with compatibility for the PlayStation Vita and PlayStation TV. The Otome visual novel didn't see a huge following after its release, but it has an interesting trail to its history. Idea Factory tackles games like this all the time. However, Concept, the game company Mega Man creator Keiji Inafune founded after leaving Capcom, had its first project by co-developing this with Idea Factory. Funnily enough, Keiji Inafune takes up a role in the game as the illustrious creator of the video game theme park where the pig-ridden death game takes place. Yeah, we'll get back to that later. Well, Sweet Fuse is certainly a visual novel. If you've ever touched a visual novel before, you'll understand the decision-making style gameplay from a mile away. As the game progresses, your heroine makes choices that will ultimately provide variations in the story and spur reaction from the lively cast of characters. Specifically, Sweet Fuse employs the decision route gameplay method by keeping track of your choices and how characters react. In time, the system locks the story into a character-specific route. From there, it's up to the player to make sure that their choices win enough of the affection of that character to fuel the romance and get the good ending version of that route. Oh, did I not mention? Sweet Fuse is a dating sim, and Otome is a visual novel that acts as a dating sim with a female protagonist. Don't worry, you'll also get thrown into death games at the same time. Anything for that romantic situation, eh? Each route tells a little bit more of the story, so making the right choices to get the route you want is key. Optional mechanics are there to show the player when responses are seen favorably, fast forward previously read section, and allow quick saves. These offer up some basic mechanics of convenience for working one's way through the multiple branches of the story. All in all though, Sweet Fuse is quite standard when it comes to visual novels. It doesn't try to break any mold or revolutionize the progression system seen in others like it. It does, however, throw an occasional wrench into the mix with the Explosive Insight minigame. At occasions during each stage, a mystery blocking the group's progress crops up and throws our heroine into deep thought. She goes over the issue again and gives the opportunity to pick 3 keywords from her overview. If one of the keywords chosen by the player is the key to solving the mystery, our heroine has an explosive insight. Essentially, she solves the mystery. If none of the 3 are correct, then game over for you, but don't worry, you can choose to try again with absolutely no consequences. Explosive Insight is by and far the closest the game comes to attempting to give a clever mechanic for the player to work with. While each session is a fun and thought-provoking distraction, it must also be noted that these are incredibly easy. Guessing randomly gives a pretty good percentage of getting success alone. With common sense ruling a lot of them out, the chances of success on just guessing between what's left becomes laughably high. The system is at its best when it gets the player to sit down and really think through the problem, but by no means does it require coming near solving the mystery to proceed. Difficulty is probably the biggest issue with the limited mechanics on display. Anything involving increasing difficulty is essentially turning off convenience features. In terms of attempting to give a greater difficulty to the game, methods like this come off as lazy at best. More likely, removing the convenience mechanics is meant more for removing the gamey, immersion-breaking moments that can crop up every once in a while. In general, though, the gameplay is quite standard fare for the genre. Chances are, it's not what the player came for anyways, and holds up quite well for what it's there for. Now this is why you're here. Taking place in modern Japan, Sweet Fuse is a death game thriller where a young maiden is thrown in with a group to complete a series of games putting their lives at risk in hope of rescuing the hostages and taking down the mastermind. Sweet Fuse starts off by allowing you to name your heroine. She, the niece of the famous Keiji Inafune, is invited to the grand opening of his new video game-inspired theme park. Almost immediately, the opening ceremony is hijacked and the heads of the park are taken hostage. As the crowd runs in a panic, the illustrious Count Hogstein leads his army of pig costume henchmen and takes the stage to announce a week of deadly games to be played by various people from the crowd. Our heroine, fearing for her uncle in a hostage situation, offers herself up as a participant. A surprised Hogstein accepts, throwing her in with the 6 men drafted to play the games. The merry band of 7 must now make their way through the daily deadly diversions to deal with the dastardly desires of the mysterious Count Hogstein, all while warding off the wariness of their own trustworthiness. To say much more would do the game little justice by spoiling its finer element, aka the plots with its twists, turns, and ongoing mysteries. Structurally, the game diverges into character routes among the participants. As noted, the game is an Otome visual novel, meaning a focus will be on the ability for the female protagonists to pursue romances with a variety of male characters. These character routes do just that with endings for each of the cast. The mystery behind the games themselves is slowly unveiled in each route as the character's story progresses. The route has been beaten through to the end, a new playthrough unlocks the equivalent of a true ending route. The mysteriousness and danger of the scenario is not lost on the player. Every day the mystery is thrown in their faces as themed games rain down another devious plot by the scheming hog. The lack of information and slow suspicions rising in the back of the player's mind is mirrored on screen as what camaraderie the group has is put to the test. Simply put, the plot itself can be slow to get going, but getting the answers to the mysteries plaguing the cast is very much worth it. Characters themselves have a bit more of a hit or miss attribute to them. While they are well written and have a good sense of depth to them, it's very easy for some of them to come off as annoying and others to come off as like a good friend. It's unfortunate for a game that is so focused on character routes, as the replayability factor of the game is solely dependent on how much of the cast you like. The biggest problem with the plot is its reliance on flexible set of plot elements in a gameplay system without that flexibility. One particular moment when this was the case was when the group had to play music to ward off a death trap. The lead up to this made the scenario quite tense. Then, when it happened, the screen simply fades away and comes back to say they won. It happens more than once, and much of the moment-to-moment drama of the death games can be lost when your actions have no actual way to affect the results. This is the same for most decisions, which are more there for obtaining affection from your chosen character route than making any difference in the daily death games. While the overall plot is quite compelling, any given moment can be washed away by the next line of dialogue. Admittedly, I did turn off voices and sound effects for the sake of the Let's Play I played this on. Some of the potential sound design was lost there, so I won't knock the game down too much on that department for anything related to them. From what I've heard of each, the voices are in Japanese and the sound effects are on par with what you'd expect out of a visual novel. All status quo there. Musically, the game doesn't throw you through any loops either. Usually. A few tracks here and there really caught my ear by trying their darndest to be different, but more often than not the soundtracks relied on situational tracks to effectively set the mood. Often the game can throw up a track before the scene even sets its own mood and the player can read the transition of tone before that ever really happens. The songs do a good job of being memorable by repetition. While it does have the upside of making it clear what the plot is going for, it can make the music a bit stale over time, and for a game that clocks in at a bit under 10 hours for a full playthrough of a single route, repetition to that extent can be a bit exhausting. Visually, the game doesn't really cut corners, nor is it particularly complicated. As is the case with most visual novels, the common setup is backgrounds with character portraits and text boxes plastered over it. With that, the occasional specially drawn artwork of the characters is featured in notable scenes, this, again, a typical inclusion of the genre. What the game does well visually is create a unique and consistent stylization around the bomb theme. The game is called Sweet Fuse. The logic minigame is called Explosive Insight. The entire opening credits have bombs all around. The heroine's head is shaped like a bomb. Many moments in the game give opportunity to essentially blow up by getting mad at another person. Really, the game does an excellent job at deploying this theme bombastically. Yeah, I'm sorry. But in general, the stylistic visualization does well at creating both tone and interesting imagery that helps draw the player in. The main appeal of Sweet Fuse are its plot, its characters, and the minimalist gameplay that allows deviation in said plot. Story-wise, the game offers a mystery with a satisfying end if you complete the extra route. If you wish for a single playthrough to be satisfactory, it just won't be. Some answers will be slowly squeezed into your grasp, but the major mystery surrounding the scenario will be a puzzle left half finished. Character routes are much more concerned with delving into the character itself, where the climax is about the relationship over conclusions to the plot. When everything is said and done, the stage set before you is quite satisfying in its last act, but the pacing of the reveals are painful when you consider the second playthrough for the true end equivalent is necessary. That will add on several more hours of necessary exposition for answers and more. There is also the issue of the romance aspect mixed into all of this. Like said, the character routes focus more on the conclusion to the relationship over the plot development. This means romance becomes the forefront by the end game. I won't pretend to have the experience to know the impressions these scenes leave on people who are interested in relationships with males, but from my male perspective, the romance felt a bit forced and a notch cringeworthy. No scene or engagement was so bad it dampened the overall experience, but it certainly had quite a few moments where awkward laughs felt like they were bubbling up from inside. To say it simply, these scenes are heavily dependent on the tolerance level you give to the serious, albeit a notch forced romantic moments. Moment-to-moment scenes can be hit or miss as well. As good and exciting as some aspects are, the tension from the compelling death game scenario can be lost because the decision-making gameplay focuses so much on developing relationships instead. It may sound like I'm dealing a decisive lackluster blow to this game, but it becomes one of those experiences where the roadblock between good and great are all too apparent. The ride was enjoyable and certainly worth the time commitment, but a better balance between the mechanical aspect and the scenario would be very much appreciated. Sweet Fuse at Your Side is an Otome visual novel with a mystery plot that sends the protagonist into a life-or-death week of games. In that role, it's very competent and will appeal a bit to those who like both romance and tension-filled escapades. Though, if you only like one or the other, it's closer to a coin flip likelihood. Generally, I'd offer a rating of this work as a recommended game. Its flaws are pretty clear, but it can grab the player in for hours on end as it slowly makes its way across the week of games to its finale. Unfortunately, many of the flaws come from the reality of how the various aspects meld, or rather don't meld, together. Many of the individual parts are good or great, but cohesiveness can be one of the most difficult and ultimately damning parts of keeping a game from being great. And that is sort of where we have Sweet Fuse. As for recommended games, I'm going to suggest the Zero Escape series and the Danganronpa games. They're both death games that are essentially very character-driven. Danganronpa is much more character-driven, while Zero Escape is much more plot and plot twist-driven. So Sweet Fuse has elements of both of those you can see put in here, but both of those are more masters of this art, while Sweet Fuse uses it in a competent way that is quite enjoyable. Zero Escape is amazing at the plot twist, Danganronpa is amazing at the characters, and both games do very well to balance the two. And honestly, if you even like Sweet Fuse in any way or form, I'd say Danganronpa and Zero Escape are almost definitely the best series for you to go just try right now, because they're amazing. And I won't say any more because I'm gonna go on a rant about why I love those series and why they actually led me to trying Sweet Fuse in the first place. But go try them. Just drive safely. Don't review now. Go play them.